On April 7th, I released a video called Does the Size of Your Blade Matter? We were talking about the MDV line of folders as well as fixed blades being about 3 to 3 1/4 inch in length. A number of you did comment, and I picked 10 different comments to address. What I want to do in this video is just go over these comments and create better teaching points so that you can understand our mindset a little bit more and I can get to know you as the audience a little bit better. Let's get into those comments now. The entire purpose of me picking out these comments is for me to elaborate a little bit more, provide detail, more context. This is something that I do in a number of my classes. I spend a lot of time before my classes interviewing and talking to those who attend either my seminars, my lessons, or my courses. What this does is allows me to provide very customized information that allows you to apply the knowledge directly to your life. This is unfortunately not something that I can do for this type of video content. I am only gaining information and knowledge of what you guys really like through your comments and your questions. And so none of these are meant to isolate an individual person or make fun of the comments that are being placed. It is just to elaborate more on the lesson so that you guys understand at least where I'm coming from when I'm trying to pass on this information. So we're going to go over 5 of the initial comments in this video, and there will be a part 2. The more you guys are subscribing, the more you're making comments, the better I get to know the audience, and I'll be able to tailor a lot more of the content towards something that you find greater value in. So let's get into the first few comments now. This first comment, it's from Yvonne Gray. We're going to be throwing these screenshots up so that you can read them. Basically, the question is, how much better would a 5-inch knife perform? Since we're talking about a 3-inch blade, a 5-inch blade is going to perform better than a 3-inch blade. In my response, I was a bit of a smartass, and I said not as good as an 8-inch blade. And then I went on to go, a 3-inch blade is less than a 5-inch blade, less than a 8, less than a 12, and less than a 17. I mean, basically, the idea is that larger blades perform better when cutting. The ability to carry and conceal the blade is going to be more difficult the larger the blade is. Now, if you have a folder that reduces the size because it cuts it basically in half, but that still does not go against the whole principle that the larger the blade is, the more of a tool you're going to have to find and conceal. And since I don't know who is actually watching these videos or who is trying to conceal them, I tend to push people towards something that's more comfortable because you're going to be carrying it more often than you are going to be using them. It's the same thing when you start talking about concealed pistols. The thing is that a lot of people like to shoot larger framed firearms. Unfortunately, carrying them is a different thing. A lot of times what happens is you get somebody to purchase a larger frame firearm and they will carry it when the weather is appropriate and they can dress appropriately. Unfortunately, when things get warmer or there's less clothing and there's a higher probability of printing, they tend to not carry that firearm. And it's the same thing with knives. If I have a large blade that I'm advocating, then what happens is that only those who are truly dedicated towards personal protection are going to carry them. If I take a smaller folder or I take a smaller fixed blade, I can try to convince someone who is brand new to the concept of personal protection and get them to carry a smaller tool, at least initially, and then when they want to upgrade to a larger tool, then in turn they can do so. But me advocating for somebody to carry smaller blades is always going to be because in an everyday carry type situation, people are going to have a large variety of clothing that they are going to be using. And depending on if they're male or female, they have to adjust their clothing based off of the size of that tool. The smaller the tool is, the more outfits and type of styles of dress they are going to be able to carry that tool in. All right, so I am not lost on the fact that larger blades perform better when you are cutting. But the thing is that are you going to carry that every single day? And if the answer is no, you're not going to carry that, then it isn't smart for me to advocate that larger blade. So this might be one of the ones you might have to pause the video on. In this correspondence, this individual stated the minimal size of fighting knife blade is 5 inches. Smaller knives are toys they can't kill. All right. Now, it is important for everyone to understand that I can only respond to what you write down. So I responded with, that's factually incorrect. You need very little research to prove this ignorant statement to be false. Now, the reason I said that is because I have a lot of connections directly to law enforcement and other agencies, and I do classes on the attacks and the types of damage that blades do to humans. And I have a number of slides of those that have died through knife attacks. And these individuals are found themselves in the unfortunate scenario of being attacked by someone with an edge weapon, and they died because of that attack. Now, these knives can be anything from a large kitchen knife all the way down to a metal pen, which I have a slide on where two businessmen had an argument, and then one of them slammed a metal pen into the temple of the other one across from a table, and that was the end of it, all the way to someone that has been cut up through a razor blade, which is basically just one of those replacement razors that you can buy at Lowe's. And so it is factually incorrect to state that a blade has to be 5 inches to be able to cause any type of lethal damage. Smaller blades can do tremendous amount of trauma, especially for somebody who is skilled and has good knowledge of the anatomy and where to cut and what happens when you cut those areas. Now, as we went on in this correspondence, the individual stated, is it easier to kill with 6-inch blade army knife or with a 3-inch blade? If 3-inch is so effective, then why do in army use K-bar or Ontario Marine Combat type big knives? All right. Once again, in my correspondence, I stated your statement was they can't kill, not it's easier to kill with a larger blade. The fact is that, once again, I already talked about this, larger blades will do more damage. Yes, you can cause lethal damage easier when you are skilled with a larger blade than a smaller blade. That was not the original statement. And as far as the Army carries knives that are larger because they are fully kitted out. What happens is they don't have to worry about concealment in most cases. I do train special operations in civilian clothing and how to conceal blades. And when we start talking about that environment, we start talking about smaller blades. But as far as, say, the Army or the Marine Corps utilizing full combat blades, it's because they don't care about concealment. And so, yes, they will carry a larger blade because, one, it is not an issue as far as being able to carry a larger blade and somebody else seeing that the blade is on them. And then, two, the thing is that larger blades are more effective in that environment, a combat environment, because a lot of times they're fully kitted out, they have gloves on, and they need to have a positive grip on whatever the blade is. So it can't be a small blade because then they would have to look down to grab it on their kit. When it's a larger blade, they can reach down and they can have positive contact while somebody's trying to murder their favorite face. And in turn, because of that, they can keep their attention on the attack, grab their blade, and then bury it through that person's favorite face. And so there's a number of reasons why larger blades are used for military type training. And a lot of times it's not always about utilizing a large blade in knife or personal protection. Those blades also transcend into other environments. They are survival blades. They are blades that are to be utilized in survival scenarios where they have to use it to pry open things, to cut wood, to start fires, all these different things that are applied into it. There's field craft, and then there are survival tasks that that blade has to be able to do. A lot of times when you're talking about everyday carry, you don't have to worry about any of that crap because you are just talking about a blade that will be used if somebody tries to do violence upon you, and it is not meant for any utility purpose. At least that is what the blades that we design for personal protection are focusing on. In response to that second comment, I wanted to utilize this other comment, which was from Arnel Galera. He talks about in Manila, Philippines, a friend personally witnessed a knife fight between two combatants, one wielding a balisong, the other a shoe sole trimmer. Now, a picture of a shoe sole trimmer is going to pop up on this video, and you're going to see that it's a very, very small blade. It is sharp because it does have to cut directly through leather, but long story short, the balisong fighter ended up holding his innards in with one hand. We get back to the fact that a small blade in the hands of a skilled person is always going to be more effective than a large blade in someone who is either not willing to use that large blade or not skilled enough to actually utilize it effectively. All right, so in this next comment, Shuro J.A., I don't know if that's all one word. The statement is, ever try cutting a broken serpentine belt out that has wrapped itself between the drive pulley and motor block while laying on asphalt hot enough to fry an egg with a knife with a 3-inch blade? To answer that question, no, I have not. An EDC knife should be able to handle the vast majority of unexpected everyday BS that comes up, including self-defense, which is a rarity for the average person. A 3.5-inch blade is the minimum I'll ever carry. I prefer a 4-inch blade folder, a 5-inch minimum fixed blade, and concealed pistol as my EDC, though I fortunately live in a state where it's legal. A 3-inch blade knife, particularly a folder, has its place, usually as a 5th pocket carry for light or detailed work. The content that we place on this channel has to cover, unless I specifically state it, the average person. A lot of you are making these comments and you have many, many years of carrying edge weapons or carrying other tools for personal protection. This individual is talking about a 3-inch bladed knife being a 5th pocket carry. It is very difficult to get people to carry one blade, nevertheless 5. I don't understand where it's hard to comprehend that when I suggest an EDC tool for personal protection, the entire focus on that is just that. It is just for the violent encounter that could possibly happen. When I talk to women and they are afraid of somebody attacking them and causing violence to them or a loved one, a lot of times they have never carried anything for personal protection. And so, yes, if I could get them to carry a firearm, I probably would try to, but the fact is that it is very difficult to get a female to carry a firearm on their person with a round in the chamber from nothing. The idea is to get them to carry something for personal protection and then in turn upgrade over time. For the rest of you that are already carrying more than one blade plus a pistol, A lot of times, the content that I'm pushing out is not exactly designed for you because your mindset is well past the average person. And no offense, you're an outlier. And so the majority of the content is designed for the people that are probably 2 decades before your current state. So think about your loved ones who don't actually believe in violence, or they are hesitant to carry anything for a violent purpose, and you're trying to just get them to carry something just to be a little bit safer. All right. Now, I do agree that an EDC knife should be able to handle the vast majority of unexpected everyday BS. But I don't agree that a broken serpentine belt wrapped around the drive pulley and motor block while laying on asphalt hot enough to fry an egg is an everyday occurrence. And if it is an everyday occurrence for you, then either you're a motorhead or you need to take a look at the vehicles you're driving because these tend to be shit. I have asked a number of individuals how often that has happened to them, and the large majority of them have stated that they have never encountered that. So that's not an everyday purpose thing. And in that scenario, you can have in your toolkit or your toolbox in your truck or in your vehicle a larger blade that you can access because that doesn't need to be directly on you. That is a utility blade type task. The purpose of EDC blades designed for personal protection is to have on you just in case you ever need to use them. Unfortunately, on a human or an animal, that means to do you great bodily harm or push into lethal intent. The fact that a 3.5-inch blade is the minimum is interesting because now what we're doing is we're talking about a half an inch for the MDV fixed blade being the make or break on whether or not you're going to carry it for personal protection. When you're talking about this blade here, this is 3 inches and 1/4. And so now you're talking about a 1/4 of an inch being the thing that is disqualifying this blade as a personal protection tool. It doesn't really matter that much if you know how to use the blade. And so that is my statement on this. You can go through it. I know some of you aren't going to agree with a lot of the stuff. If you guys are already carrying a pistol and larger blades, then please carry a larger blade. You need to choose the tools that are going to be most appropriate for you and to serve you the best. And you have to also at least give me the benefit of the doubt that when I am talking to the majority of people, that's who I'm targeting. I'm targeting individuals that fall within normal categories. I'm trying to introduce people to self-defense and personal protection, and I'm trying to get people to understand the purpose of these type of blades that are specifically designed for violent encounters. Some of you have too much experience and you forget what the average person goes through and the progression that they have to go through from carrying nothing to carrying what you are currently carrying today. So in this next comment, I chose them because they talked about the damage that can be done with a blade. The unknown atheist states that something many don't know is that with tissue compression, a thrust will actually penetrate maybe 5 inches or more with a 3.5-inch blade. Imagine you hitting hard with it and the point keeps going deeper than the length of the blade because you're pushing in and or compressing the flesh behind it. Also, look at some of those videos where guys take various blades to pieces of meat and see the wounds created even by little karambits. And that's absolutely true. My father cut himself when he was practicing for the karate nationals. And when you do forms with weapons, you tend to be scored higher if you utilize the actual weapons that are dangerous versus the practice weapons that are not. And so he was doing a form with the kama, which is basically a sickle. And the thing is that we were going out to eat one night, and he decided to practice a couple more reps on a number of different areas of that form while my mom was getting ready. And the movement that he was doing was he was taking the kama and he was going here and then rotating them out. And the thing is that you were supposed to rotate out from away from the elbow and then pull your wrist like this to cut, as if you're trying to sever something like somebody's head off, right? And the thing about edge weapons, like firearms, is the moment that you don't respect them, they tend to remind you about how dangerous they are. And what he did was he rotated his wrist too early, and the kama hit his left tricep. And when it did, his tricep was flexed. And he said that as soon as he felt the blade touch his tricep, he immediately dropped them. And then he placed his hand on the back of his tricep, and his fingers reached all the way in, and he could feel the bone inside. And if you've ever seen my father, you can take my arms and just double them, and that's how big he is. Anyways, what happened was he went to the ER and he got a number of stitches. It took him over 18 months to be able to do a single push-up. But the interesting thing is that when we came home, he grabbed the kama that cut him, and there was blood on the very tip of the kama. And what he did was he took a ruler and he measured it out, and the blood only showed about 1/8 of an inch of contact. And the reason that it cut him to the bone was because his tricep was flexed. And when it was flexed, not only did it penetrate, but it actually it expanded the wound because of the tension of his tricep when it was flexed. And that's why it cut so deep with such a very small amount of the blade. And so the thing is that when you start talking about utilizing this against a live and resisting opponent, the damage that you're going to create because of the fact that that person is going to be tensed is going to be much more. So not only is the compression of the flesh going to cause more damage when you penetrate, you are also going to create more damage because the muscle is going to almost rip and extend out in that fashion. And so that is an important understanding for that. Now, we've done meat cutting demos. So let's take a look at one of the clips where we have a hanging piece of meat and we are utilizing the MDV and the MDV folder on that. So let's look at that now. Down and all right, so as you can see, the blades do a lot of damage on a flaccid piece of meat that has absolutely no tension. Going back to the original story that I had, just imagine if that was a flexed piece of meat, and in turn, it would cut even deeper with those small snap cuts that we did. Jorge Fernandez also commented on this. He stated, "It was all fun and games until you actually showed what that knife can do. It's not the weapon that's the real danger. You can put a knife or gun on a table and it will stay there for 100 years until somebody picks it up. Now it's dangerous. I'm a retired EMT and current ER tech, and the majority of the public out there have no idea of how lethal a 2.5 to 3 inch blade can be. Example, a scalpel is barely an inch long, but it can open you up from your sternum to your pubic line in a millisecond. I rest my case. Great video." Thank you, Jorge, for the comment. And that is absolutely true. Once again, the smallest of blades in the hands of somebody who has medical knowledge is going to be able to do extreme damage when the intent is to cause that damage utilizing that medical knowledge. And the more skill that you have, the more you can rely on that skill, especially in a close proximity. Remember, your blade should never be utilized to intimidate someone, and so they should find out that you have a blade because you have already caused damage to them or it is directly inside of them, which means that they are not going to be expecting what's going on. They think you're unarmed until, well, it's too late for them. At least that's what we teach in our personal protection. And to close out this video, we're going to leave on the comment from Daniel Alexander 799. Daniel states, that depends, dot, dot, dot. Is it just to cut a small tomato or a whole head of cabbage? Well, my response to that is fuck cabbage, fuck lettuce, fuck green shit. So I don't really have any other response to that. Yeah, fuck lettuce. All right, so I will leave you guys with this. The fact is that I have personally designed certain knives for everyday carry and for the individuals that I train on a regular basis. I've said this over and over again. You can take a look at my background and see where that experience comes from. I tend to lean a little bit more on that type of experience, and as well as training individuals who have no history of carrying anything for personal protection, trying to get them to understand the why. Why are they going to actually protect themselves and the value that that individual has, so that they understand that someone attacking them is also attacking their loved ones. And it's not just a skill set that works towards if somebody attacks their loved ones. You always get those individuals that are like, I cannot defend myself because I feel that all life is valuable. But if somebody attacked my children, I would ... fill in the blank, violent response. And the thing is that I have to train those individuals to understand that it is interchangeable. If they attack their loved ones, they are also attacking you. If they attack you, they're attacking your loved ones. Everyone that cares for you is going to forever be affected by this violent encounter. So you should at least consider protecting yourself for those individuals that you care most about. Now, for those of you that want larger blades, it's not like Skallywag Tactical doesn't provide them. In fact, if you want a good blade for personal protection that is larger, is the Kairos, and that is a blade designed by Javen Roberts. I've been carrying this thing in the center. I've been carrying this on my belt as a primary knife, utilizing the soft loops directly in front for the last couple weeks, just as an example of how to carry this for a future video. Now, the thing is that this is 4 inches, 4¼ inch as far as length is concerned. So for those of you that don't like the 3-inch blade and you want another 1¼ inch attached to it, so 1.25 inches, then grab one of these things. This is a great fighting blade, especially for those of you that have a background in combative arts or knife fighting, Filipino martial arts, and you are more accustomed to a blade of this type or this design. For those of you that are into carrying large full combat blades, then we also carry the Riptide Spear Point. And so you can get into larger blades, and this is going to be very effective to accomplish all of your stabby, slicey, knife on knife type encounters. The problem is I just don't know how you're going to carry this. Now, you could be like Brom from Game of Thrones and hide it on your lower back, and there are a number of ways for you to do that. But the thing is that the average human will find that this is a little bit large to carry on an everyday type situation. I do have a buddy of mine, one of my black belts. His name is Bull, or at least that's his nickname, and you can imagine why we call him Bull. It's not because he's small, and he could carry this like I carry this. And so in turn, it just depends on what you are comfortable with and what your intent is. The thing is that if you are ever caught with fixed blades like this, it is much harder to defend yourself or to explain yourself to law enforcement of why you're carrying it than something like this that looks like a normal utility folder. Yes, there are features of this that are designed for personal protection and specific to causing damage to humans. But the average person looking at it is going to say that this is benign in comparison to, say, something like this, which is obviously a fighting blade or a blade that would be considered a knife fighting blade. And then obviously this, which is a combat blade. Get all of these blades at skallywagtactical.com. Make sure that you use the code ELITEU for your 10% off. We're going to have a part 2 to this. I have 5 more comments I did want to cover, but this video is going a little bit long. I hope you guys are enjoying these responses. Please tell me what you think, and if you have any comments or questions that you want me to dedicate to a singular video, short form or long, shoot that directly to mdv@skallywag.com. I'll see you guys in the next video.